welcome once again to Digging Deeper with Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd, and we dig into the best and greatest gardening topics in the world in Nebraska. Here we are at beautiful Bayside Golf Club in Brule, and so what we want to do, since we always like to respond to what our audience wants, is we are going to let the audience ask us those questions tonight. We also already have several people who have sort of volunteered, right, to come to the mic, so have at it, ask your question, and panel, you better be ready to answer.
Right. I live in the Seward, Nebraska area, and this is a weeping willow question. And so I've now killed my second one, and the two garden centers over the years that I've gotten them from have all said that anybody can grow a weeping willow. And so anyway, I really want to try the third time's the charm type of thing. So where should I put it?
Elizabeth?
So weeping willow is just like in the same plant family as the regular willow and the cottonwoods, and they like wet soil. And so those weeping willows are going to be in those spots. The questions I have are, what are some of the symptoms that it had when it died?
It turns yellow, that it gets very, very yellow, and then there will just be certain branches that turn brown.
Canker. Kyle, cankers?
Yeah, it could be a canker if you follow the branches back down to the soil and prune.
Buy from a good, reliable source and buy as small, don't you think, Elizabeth, as small a tree as you can.
All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
good luck. Send us a picture when it dies again. Yes, sir.
Yes. My question deals with thrips. So I have a friend that has a pretty good sized hobby greenhouse. He grows primarily bedding plants and vegetables. And this summer, we had a lot of thrips on the marigolds and tomatoes. So I have two parts to my questions. First, will thrips target certain plants only in a greenhouse? And the second part is, I don't like to use chemicals in the greenhouse. So what can I do and my friend do this summer, fall, winter to minimize the number of thrips that will be in the greenhouse next summer?
Okay. Thrips
That's
is,
a good one.
yeah.
Thrips. It's
I
always
know.
thrips.
I know.
Single plural thrips. So non-chemical solution for thrips. Once they're in the greenhouse, they're going to go for whatever's available. Most thrips are not real picky. Some may prefer leaf foliage over flowers. As far as non-chemical, do you have any screening over your vents at all?
We do not.
You do not. That would be a good place to start, and to keep thrips out, you're going to need a very fine mesh screening so that when those vents open up, it keeps them from coming inside. So once you have that established, leave the greenhouse bare for a while to clean them out. And if you wanted to, at that point, you could do a chemical application within the greenhouse while it's empty, so you're not going to be affecting your plants that you're going to be trying to grow. Get that screening up and try to exclude them.
So maybe I could bake the greenhouse this summer and then fumigate it in the fall, possibly?
Yeah,
Would that
that would be a good,
Okay.
good way to go about getting it cleaned up and ready for your production for
Okay.
next year.
And put the screens on. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
So before our next person steps to the mic, I want to thank our audience for coming and braving that sun before the sun decided to do us a favor and go down and not create the storms before we're finished. But we certainly appreciate it. We could not have either Digging Deeper or Backyard Farmer without you guys. All right, your turn.
Hi there. I have a question which maybe Kim really ought to answer in the form of a lightning round. But this is a pruning question. For seasons, many seasons, there's always two answers to the question, when's the best time to prune? One is often when you're there and the saw is sharp. And the other, Kim, you have a little quip that I think is when the green is on, the pruning's gone. I think I heard that last fall, right after the Nebraska Arborists Association released some new standards for pruning. So here we go, confusion. The Nebraska Arborists Association says, although elms and oaks are really good in winter, most should be saved until spring of April, May, and June, because the physiological response of the reaction zone, they heal faster. They're growing and they heal fast. However, if you read and listen to Roger Cook on This Old House, which we do, he says, maples only after the sap flows and the leaves are on. And then the Extension Service says, not with conifers. Evergreens are different, and most conifers and pines after new growth. What's a homeowner to do?
Call us.
With a specific tree,
With
right?
a specific tree.
Well,
You're right on all counts. Is that, don't you think, Elizabeth, since you know this as well?
Yep, and
Yeah.
I was there when the arborist also said, that physiologically they're going to heal faster if you do it. The hard part at that point in time of the year is sometimes you can't see branching angles.
Right.
So if I'm looking at branching angles or I'm looking at codominant leaders, I'm going to be doing it when it's dormant, and I don't want to do oak wilt, so I'm going to prune those at a different time of year. And conifers, if I want to take them down to a smaller size, I'm going to recommend after the new growth is on. So it really is species specific. Just like there's a million answers on how to prune a tree, it's really specific on when to prune a tree, what type of tree it is.
Well, it's really complicated for the homeowner who probably doesn't even know what tree they really have.
Which is why they send us pictures.
Okay.
Yep.
That was the question. You
Yep.
dodged it, though.
Of course. I always tell people I don't have to know anything. I just have to know who gets the question. Yes, sir.
Well, I don't know if anybody else has got this problem this summer, but I've had watermelon and cantaloupe seeds in the ground since May 16th, and they have not appeared. So that's my first question is, do I replant or do I hope that they will come up eventually? My second question has to do with gladiolas. I'm a huge gladiola grower. I plant about 500 bulbs every spring and then dig them up in the fall. And I'm tired of cleaning them off every winter. Do you have to clean them clear down to where a lot of times they have a little stem coming up out of them? So I'm trying to cut down on my work time. So
where are you at in the state? That's the first question.
Paxton, Nebraska.
Okay. So I planted my cucumbers and they took longer than average to come up this year. I thought they weren't coming up, so I replanted them. So it took about 10 to 14 days, which most of the time my muskmelon was up in 7. So I would say wait if you have good seed. So if you did your germ test or if you're concerned, I would do the wet paper towel method and make sure that you have good seed or if you bought new seed.
They were new seed.
They were new seed. Then, if it was me, I'd plant some extra ones and plant them in a little different spot, and then I'd see who wins. Because a lot of that you're waiting for warmer soil temperatures, and we're not going to be quite as soggy with those. So it's just going to be a kind of wait and see. I don't want to tell you to plant more, but easier to thin them out than to wait and have nothing come up.
And on the gladiolas question, I'm going to toss that to either Kyle or, you can't have it, Bill, it's not turf.
No.
Or to Wayne for sanitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, you want to get rid of all of the dead material that you, because anytime you have the dead plant material, now it's the natural defenses won't be there, and a lot of these other diseases can come and attack it. And it'll just serve as an inoculum source then for next year. And so if you do kind of want to cut some corners on sanitation, it can really come back to bite you in the next spring when you come back again.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up. You guys are great, by the way. A lot of our audiences won't do this.
I'm from Alliance, Nebraska, or Hemingford, actually, and I planted a yucca probably 10 years ago, and it was just a little bitty thing, and now it's like 4 or 5 big things, and I was wondering what I do to, I don't want to prune it because it's very pokey, and I didn't know what to put on it to kill it or what I need to do.
So let's hear if we have the answer that is legal or the answer that isn't.
If you want to kill them, you can't. If you want them to survive, they won't. So that being said, you know, sharp spade, I know they've got a big root system, is probably going to be your best bet. My concern is that if you try to kill one, you're looking at putting some spreader stickers and lots of stuff in that tank mix to get that product to stick to it, because you know that it's really, you know, I can't think of the word slick, and it's just not going to have a good contact with that. So that's where you might be looking at trying to dig those guys,
Rather than spray.
chop at them instead of spraying. I don't know, Bill?
I'm worried little children will come along because it's kind of out by the street. And I don't want to get them poked in the eye and I didn't think of that when I planted them there because it wasn't just a little thing.
They were cute. And then they didn't end up down there.
So yeah, Bill, do you ever encounter that on golf courses out this way?
We do on the golf courses. A lot of these sandhills golf courses, they'll shape the fairways or the greens, and then they just keep coming up right in the middle of the putting greens. I know some new courses in the sandhills that have been dealing with this, and it usually is a persistent approach of just trying to cut it up as it keeps going. It's that you're exhausting the sugar from the rootstock, but it's a battle, and I don't know anything on top of my head at all from a chemical control on Yucca. So unfortunately, it might be a persistence type of an approach with that guy.
And sometimes they don't respond well to fire.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you do it safely, that might be something else too.
Well, living out on a ranch, I know that fire doesn't kill them either. They may
be hot.
singe them, but
Yep,
they will
it's got to
come
be
back.
there and get them good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, on that sort of depressing note,
Sorry.
what else can we not help you with?
I have a specimen here. I have 3 Katonah Asters. I live in Ogallala. And last year, at the end of the year, they just became infested with that whatever. And I started to trim it back, cut, but then it just was engulfed on all of them. This year, you can hardly see it. It's really spreading, coming out of that. So I guess I'd like to know if that comes back this fall, what I could put on it. Hopefully something that's green.
This happens in the fall?
What?
Or does it happen in the spring? When's the
It happened
timing?
in the fall, late summer, and
summer.
just
So this
over
is-
a period of a very short time, it was engulfed, all of them.
Is there an insect in there?
There's silk webbing in here,
Yeah.
so it's probably insect related.
Okay.
I would go with,
Wayne?
as soon as you start seeing them, I would go with a labeled shrub insect killer.
Okay.
That's topical.
Wayne, turn that out a little.
Turn that, oh, they're trying to get a,
Yeah.
I see. So that you can
There,
catch it
perfect.
before they make it.
Okay.
That's what you need to do, because once they're inside that
Ow.
protective, you're not going to get anything to them. And you'll be late in the year, so a systemic will likely go down instead of up. So I wouldn't want to go that route either. So
Okay.
you want to, as soon as you start seeing the first signs of the first one, that's when you want to go after it.
Okay, well, it happens quickly, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So those of you who are interested in what we're doing, of course, on Digging Deeper, we encourage you to participate on Facebook. Send us your comments, send us your questions, because the whole point of Digging Deeper is for the audience to be able to enjoy us. Your turn.
Just a quick note on your gladiolus questions. I live in an old house that was built in the 50s, and I planted glads about 6 inches from the foundation, pretty deep. And most of them survived about 15, 20 years without doing anything, just let them grow. Clean up the floatings and fall and do. So my question is, I live about 15 miles straight west, up on the tableland between the 2 river valleys. What kind of fruit trees? I've got a lot of apples. What are the hardiest, like cherry, peach, plum, apricot? Do you recommend to plant? I've got a few started, but I'd like to get there's a lot of choices out there. What's the best one for me?
So right off the top of my head, when we're talking cherries, you want tart cherries. You don't want sweet cherries.
Right.
Bings will not do well for you. Mount Morrissey, North Star are the 2 that come to mind.
Okay.
When we take a look at peaches, good luck. Red Haven, Hale Haven are the ones that come to mind first. Apricots, for some reason, Moonglow is coming to my mind. We do have a neb guide about fruit tree cultivars for Nebraska. And it'll tell you what pollinators you're going to need, because sometimes you're going to require that pollinator.
Thank you.
And so that's going to be one that I'd have you take a look at first. That being said, we know it's a little bit more difficult out here to grow fruit trees. And so on average, fruit trees in a commercial setting, like peaches, will be about 8 years. So it takes 3 years to produce. So peaches or apricots, you might get some. You're looking for ones that bloom as late as possible.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're never going to get any fruit. You're going to have a nice looking tree.
Well, I always said you plant trees for the next generation. My father was pulling pine trees on his diaper behind my grandma, and he's 92 right now, and the pines are beautiful.
There you go.
We got several probably thousands of trees in the yard, and we planted trees on the eyes this high, and I'm planting them for the next generation.
There you go.
Except for those peaches that only live 8 years.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, I'll probably live long enough to eat a peach.
You might.
Thanks for coming to Western Nebraska. I
Our
really
pleasure.
appreciate your show. If I could just figure out, get you guys on Dish Network so we could actually see you out here on TV without having to go to have it taped.
Oh, Dish Network.
Well, they're not available
I know.
on our TV.
I know.
We're in Western Nebraska. I was the county commissioner. We get Denver news, not Nebraska news,
I know.
which is pathetic.
I know.
So you
We
guys would
hear your pain.
push on and work on it. Thank you.
All right, we have time for maybe a couple more, as I understand it.
Turf question.
Good.
Live on a golf course here. Anyway, I live in Omaha in Papillion and have a cabin about a mile west of here. Miss my bluegrass, miss my barefoot turf grass.
Yep.
And struggling with something that would push out the sandburs. Is that zoysia out here? Is that something that would work out here?
No, honestly, this is bluegrass, and even you're gonna have a tough time with in this climate, the buffalo blue grama is the mixture that you normally would see naturally in the shortgrass prairies.
I have some of that down, but it's just not pushing the sandburs
Yeah, the
out.
sandburs are going to be a challenge either way, and to really control them, you're going to be looking at like a tenacity application, and you might need to contract someone, maybe at the golf course here or someone locally that would be able to treat for you.
Okay.
Otherwise, the bluegrass actually is pretty well adapted for our cool season grasses here. There's even some newer ones now that grow very slow. So if you're worried about like keeping up with the mowing when you're in Omaha and then grassing growing here, some of these new, even they call them almost like vacation bluegrasses are being released by some of the big grass seed manufacturers. They grow extremely slow. That can be a challenge if you have traffic like kids and pets.
Right.
But if it's just sitting here and you just need to have it look nice and not grow too much, that might be some potential you might see a year or two down the line that you could think about planting in this climate. And it should be okay if you get some fertility down. I mean, sandy soils here, a little bit extra fertilizer, lighter amounts of water more frequently than you would in the heavy soils of Omaha.
What time of year is best to throw seed?
We'll do that here would be early August.
Early
You don't want to go
August.
too late because it starts to cool off quicker. We get harder frost coming a little bit sooner. And so you want to do that in early August, so you want to kind of prep the soil in July.
Okay, super. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And our very last guest gets to ask her question.
Hi. About a year ago, I'm from Perkins County in Madrid, and about a year ago I planted some azaleas, and I planted several, and they did wonderful last year. And then they're supposed to be hardy to 20 below. And so I covered some of them and didn't cover the rest of them. The ones that I didn't cover didn't come back at all. But the ones I did cover, when we took the covers off, they looked wonderful. They were all green and everything. But since then, 2 of those that were about 2.5 foot tall, just kind of like went kaput. But I do have some new growth coming up from the bottom, and I didn't know if I should leave it and see what happens, or if I need to take them out and replant.
Azaleas are going to be tough for you. They're just not a really good central western Nebraska plant. So that's where if you are going to cover them, we need to make sure that it's good and cold, because the whole reason we're covering them is to prevent those temperature fluctuations.
Okay.
So I don't know when you uncovered them, did you get snow afterwards, or did you get your cold temperatures?
Yeah,
or...
I think we did.
And so that might be, you know.
So maybe
it
we
kinda-
took the covers off too soon.
But it's hard to know because you were warm. You guys were warm so late in the season, and then you warmed up, and then we plummeted.
Not really.
And you guys had.
This is really about the first week we've really had steady warm.
Yeah.
So.
So they also
yeah.
need really, really acid soil.
Yeah, it's underneath some spruce trees.
Not acid enough.
Really?
No, you need a pH that is way down there, 5.5 to 6 at
Okay.
the highest.
Okay.
And our soils here are they're highly buffered, and so the rock itself is a high pH rock that makes up the soil, and so that's going to be a challenge. If you do want to acidify your soil, the best way to do it would actually bring soil in, and then you can use aluminum, which you need to put it in the soil, mix it, add water, and bring the pH down, and you have to let it wait for weeks because it's too hot, it would burn in the plant.
Okay.
But that's what you could do in a soil that's maybe not native. So if you brought soil in, that you could actually bring those pHs down a little bit. So you're almost like container planting when you see people do that, maybe more with like strawberries. And so maybe it's not feasible in an azalea, but that's kind of the intensity of acidification that you need. You can't get it with pines or sulfur applications or any of those.
Or
You need some really strong
the
chemistry.
plant food that you put down for azaleas, that's not enough either.
Yeah, it's a buffering
You'd have to
issue.
do it once a week,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah,
Okay.
and our azalea collection on campus, we amended that soil significantly, even in Lincoln, 30 years ago before we planted. So might be one that you get to look at from afar.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
One other just
Yeah.
technical question is sometimes, and I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but sometimes when I'm watching you on TV, the signal the picture gets all pixelated and...
We do that on purpose.
Okay.
See
That's
if
your
you're
top
watching.
secret, right? Yeah, because then I missed out on one whole segment of the show because it was doing that.
You can watch it on YouTube, so you can stream it always. The shows are always on YouTube, the whole show.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much.
Well, and unfortunately, that is all the time we have for Digging Deeper tonight from beautiful Bayside Golf Club in Brule, Nebraska. Make sure you watch us on Facebook, 6:30 in the evening on Sunday. And thank you so much for being here. Wonderful audience.
Yeah.